I assume you're not talking to me. Oh, you mean the audience is hearing me right now? That's a really scary thing, isn't it? Yeah. All right. All right, folks. We are working out all the technicalities of I am in multiple screens, which is kind of scary. And we're going to have a little bit of a chat about what's going on out on the Frying Pan Tower, a little bit about why we have the cameras out there. And I've got Candace in my ear to relay your questions as you post them on the different social media. So, Candace, we good to go? Jump right in there. All right. She says, take it off. So, folks, as you kind of get connected up to this, you're probably wondering where this strange phenomenon of the Frying Pan Tower came from and how come it jumped into the social media as such a popular thing. Well, we like to say that we were probably one of the best hidden things out in the middle of the ocean just off the East Coast. But the Frying Pan Tower was a Coast Guard light station put in place in the early 60s, and it was actually there before there was, as we all know, cell phones and GPS and things along those lines. The benefit of having a lighthouse at the end of the shoals is boats don't go ashore, and the boats don't actually, sink. So with the light ship, before they had the lighthouse, they had the ability to warn them off, and they would go around this large area of sand and then go into the Wilmington Cape Fear area. People ask us, why did you call it the Frying Pan Tower? Well, we didn't. It was named that way many, many years prior by mariners and captains that thought that the shoals were shaped like the handle of a frying pan, which is kind of an odd sort of thing. But what it's done is it's made it so that, well, for probably 25 years, ships were safe. And then after the advent of GPS and Loran, for those old timers, the ships no longer needed it. They kept the light running until the late 70s, and then they automated it and made it operate off of solar. Now, the solar simply provided the ability to have somewhat dimmer light at night and a foghorn. The foghorns are still there, the light is still there, but they're no longer necessary for navigation. And there is a light out in the water about 1,000, 2,000 feet away, just in case. So at night, being as there's no requirement, sometimes we turn off all the lights and we look up above and there's nothing but the beautiful Milky Way and the stars above. You can see the space station go cruising overhead and watch the meteorites go streaking across the sky. And even one time we had bioluminescent shrimp that were at the surface, and every time they would do something, they would flash blue, which sounds like science fiction, but I guess you had to be there to see it. So let's get back to the tower. It was housed with a bunch of Coast Guard guys, and these young guys had one job, and that was to keep actually the generators running, keep the light on in the corner, and then when that became obsolete, basically they slowly but surely shipped it off. The Coast Guard kept the facility automated until probably 1992. And again, it just kept a dim light on, not really necessary, but reassuring. And it's a huge, huge physical structure that gave a lot of reassurance and comfort to people that would be out on their boats, because when you're out 32, 35 miles out in the ocean, you don't see the shore. So seeing this tall structure that kind of looks like an oil rig, but it isn't one, it made people feel like, all right, this is a good and a safe place to be. So when they, oh, we got questions already. Yeah, Candace, toss one at me, and I'll hear it in my ear, and I'll repeat it back to you guys. The question is the flag still there? Based on my experience having been out there during Hurricane Matthew, Hurricane Arthur, and having Hurricane Sandy go past, yeah, it's still there. It's definitely going to be in tatters, even more so than we saw. We probably still have all the stars and a few of the stripes, and it may be wrapped up a little bit, but it will be coming to shore respectfully and honorably as soon as we can get back out there. We're probably going to see it Sunday or Monday when the onshore internet folks get the feed reconnected on their side. We're pretty sure that we are solid out there. It's a big heavy-duty box, and we had a lot of batteries, and we've been getting lots of sunlight based on the solar panels that good folks at Explorer provided. So yeah, we'll bring it back to shore. Candace says, Kevin lives. You know, it's interesting. I know that anyone with no gray or still has more hair than I do has fun on social media. And yesterday, Old Glory turned into Kevin. And although I think of a minion when I talk about Kevin, but um, they started naming the flag Kevin. How's Kevin? Is Kevin still alive? And at about 2:30 in the morning last night, with a feed of nothing but roaring noise coming in, and of course it was dark, so we couldn't see anything. We're still watching the feed, all discussing whether or not Kevin would still be alive in the morning. So one of the things I really want people to understand is that, yeah, Kevin is Old Glory, and Nancy is Old Glory, and Paul is Old Glory, and all of you that are actually watching, you guys are what makes up America. And so part of the reason why we left the flag out there in the first place is one, we didn't know that it was actually going to be a hurricane, and two, um, flying the American flag in strenuous or difficult or dangerous circumstances, when you really can't do anything about it but just stand behind it with pride and honor, is kind of something that we thought was an appropriate way of actually handling this. We did not know that it was going to turn into a hurricane. And in previous situations, we would have been out there and we would have actually replaced it ourselves. So go ahead. Ah, all right. So if we're back, as the question was, is wait a minute, where's the tower? Is it still there? So yeah, the tower is still out there. It's just fine. It's been through many worse hurricanes, and I'm sure it's just out there waiting for us to come out and clean it up, mop it, and I don't know, pick up whatever ceiling tiles have fallen out, and of course replace the flag, which we will do. Uh, how are we doing on questions? Another question. Oh, am I out there by myself? Um, no, not really. Let me explain. The facility held. Well, let me elaborate. Would I go out there by myself? Have I done that? Yes, I have, and it's very very peaceful to be out there. No, I'm not a hermit. Yes, I like being around people. But it has 8 bedrooms and one inner crew room, so we can easily house 12 to 15 people at a time. So quite often we'll go out by boat and we'll carry out supplies that have been donated, whether or not it's Culligan water or solar panels from Explorer. And yeah, more the merrier out there. Plus that makes it so we can watch over each other and keep each other safe. If you fell off in the middle of the ocean and you were by yourself, you're kind of up a creek, a big creek, without a paddle. So we also wear life jackets and we have emergency locator beacons, and we try and be safe. Another question? How high do the waves get during a hurricane? High enough? No, actually, when I was out there during Matthew, the waves would actually lift up as high as 30 feet, which sounds tremendously crazy, but we're 65 feet up at the least. And so when we're looking down at it, when waves are that large, the waves don't look like waves. They look like large rolling hills of water. And when you're looking at waves coming in on the beach, they kind of come rolling in one after another. But these waves are so big and so fast that they literally are doing 15 or 20 knots, 15 or 20 miles an hour. And they're racing past the bottom of the tower. And because the legs are so thin, they just knife right past it without shaking us or bothering us, other than being grateful that we're not down in the water. Another question? Can people visit the Frying Pan Tower? Well, you know, when I got the tower, the first thing I said is, what have I done? And what am I going to do with this thing? I really didn't expect to get it. And I won the auction as the sole bidder, government auctions, go figure. And then after I started bringing out volunteers to work on it, several of them said, well, I don't really want to work. I'd kind of like to just stay here, bring my family, my kids, my wife. And I said, well, if you'll pay to stay here, then I can buy more paint, I can buy more steel, I can take care of some repairs. And so we turned it into a bed and breakfast solely for that purpose, basically to fund the restoration. We did that for 7 years, and then earlier this year, I had to face the fact. I had to face the fact that I wasn't getting it put back together as fast as it was rusting. And you know, as much as I'd love to just be working on it all the time. Hmm. Reconnecting, thinking. Oh, yeah, the picture it captured is lovely. Yeah. Okay. That's terrible. All right. I think we're back. Can you hear me? Okay. Gosh. Where were we? Is it still a bed and breakfast? No, it's not currently a bed and breakfast because when I realized I couldn't put it all back together by myself, I went ahead and thought that the best way of dealing with it was to do a fractional ownership sale of the tower. So I broke it into 32 pieces, kind of like what Florence was trying to do yesterday and today. I broke it into 32 shares that people can purchase and participate in it. And it's not like a timeshare, it's owner. So I'm sharing the love, allowing people to help me with this piece of history. And if the new owners and myself, I'm going to stay an owner, if we decide, hey, let's go ahead and have some people out here, I think we might have enough national press to fill it up every weekend. Go figure. But we'll have to see on that. I'd love to have people out again. It's just really a matter of I'm not the only one making the decisions now. So, am I going to auction the tattered flag and donate the proceeds? Well, I might be able to wax eloquent about the tower, but I'm not an auctioneer. So, in the years that we have given away stays on the tower, we've worked with several really good organizations, cystic fibrosis, different groups, American Red Cross, etc. What we're going to do is we're going to take the flag when we can get back out there and bring it back respectfully. We're going to hand it over to the American Red Cross in Wilmington, and they have a yearly auction. And in this auction, we're hoping that they can actually achieve a pretty sizable donation that they can use directly for people that have a need for their services. I'll do what I do well, which is hopefully, I would say, making communications work and trying to fix the tower. And American Red Cross, among many other groups, is a great sponsor to take care of and give them your donations, your time, and your effort, especially now. We're all sitting around and we're all thinking about the water and the food that we have and can we keep the lights on. But there are a lot of people out there that you can help. So, make those phone calls, talk to the different people that you can help that aren't as maybe taken care of as you are. Maybe their houses got inundated with water. Maybe they're elderly and just need the brush cleaned up in their yard. So, if you're in that part of the country, reach out and help them. The question is as the owner of what you might call the most unique, or as Red Bull called one of the 10 most dangerous bed and breakfasts in the world. Go figure. Have I had any unique responses to people coming out to visit? I have had a couple husbands um, bring their spouses out and not tell them where they were going. Simply getting on the helicopter and saying, "We're going out for a helicopter ride. Pack your bag, pack it lightly," and, and then they kind of head offshore and not say anything. After about 10 minutes of going straight out over the ocean, you can see a little bit of anxiety there, and and then they're like, "What's that small little thing off in the horizon that gets bigger and bigger?" And the next thing you know, it's filling up the entire screen, and they're stepping out of the helicopter, going, "What is this? And what are we doing?" And then they get to have their adventure. So it's been pleasant as far as helping people enjoy what they would call their bucket list items. We've had groups of ladies come out and just all together enjoy an evening of the stars and just being together. We've had a bunch of guys that came out and celebrated one gentleman's 2-year remission from cancer. So it's a place where you get a unique perspective on life that you really wouldn't have otherwise. You can see things out there by simply looking up or looking down into the water and seeing these enormous clouds of bait fish, which if you're looking at explore.org's underwater deep shark cam, when the water clears up, you'll see those clouds of bait fish next to the barracuda or the rays or the sharks or the sea turtles all swimming around down there. Yeah, they're asking about please post updates to the repair of the cameras. And, it's interesting. Explore.org, right now they're taking care of the feed that you guys are watching. And one of the things I really want people to understand is that if you don't know what's out there, if you don't know what's in the ocean, if you don't know what's just in your backyard in the hills or the mountains, it's hard to find out if you jump in your car and drive to work every day. You stop by Starbucks, you get your cup of coffee, you go into the office, you go home. Turn on the feeds, find out what's actually occurring in the world around you, see what's underneath the ocean, and then find out ways that you can help it. Um, I grew up in the middle of the Midwest in Oklahoma, but one of the things that I've learned is that what you don't know, you can find out and you can get smart about. You can participate in it and you can tell others about it too. Part of the feed that we've had over the last few days has actually been up in schoolrooms where school teachers have said that they have taken the opportunity of the winds blowing to explain meteorology to their kids, and then the science of the flag actually being torn apart, and then the math of how fast is the wind moving and what is the water doing, and you know, use it as an educational tool to get smart about this world we live in. It's the only one we got. And as the astronauts like Chris Hadley would say, once you leave the Earth and look back at it, you realize this is a magnificent jewel that we live on that we should take care of. Question is have we thought about having the tower listed as a National Historic Site? It's older than 50 years old, etc. It is well thought of in that respect. We have one little teeny problem, and that is we're not in America. We're outside America by about 5 miles, which means that when we've talked to North Carolina and we've talked to the federal government, they say, I'm sorry, we really can't fund or support because you're not in America. Now, we could technically bend the rules and say, well, you know what? We have a North Carolina LLC, and we also have a nonprofit organization associated with us, and you could give to that. But the nature of the way that these things work, there are so many people that are around the coast and all around the world that can actually help out in different ways. We actually call up captains and say, if you can use your boat, can we please ride out and please stay? If someone donates something to the tower, we ask them to please come out and make sure that it gets installed correctly. And now that sounds a little tongue-in-cheek, but what we really want to do is we want to make people so that they can participate, find out what it's really like to not have to run to shore in a boat at 2 o'clock in the afternoon before it gets dark. They anchor up the boat, they come up by the hoist, which is quite exciting because it pulls you up out of the water 80 feet up in about a minute. So, which we've done for everyone from age 8 to age 82. And I say this jokingly. We haven't dropped anyone yet, which is good. But it's just the chance to share what I got to experience when I first went out there with a small group of volunteers, and we all realized this shouldn't be just for us. And so getting the cameras from explore.org in place, maintaining them, which is sometimes ridiculously hard to do, is completely worth it, and something that I am thrilled with, like I say, with the fractional sharing of sales. What am I going to do? I'm going to end up with a bunch of friends all helping me work on this great place that hopefully, let me sum it up this way. When you buy a house, you think, I'm going to fix this house, I'm going to paint it my colors, I'm going to make my yard just the way I want it. And what you don't realize is that most people buy a house and keep it for about 7 years. So what you're really doing is you're preparing that house for the next person. So I've had the tower for 8 years, and I think I'm preparing it for that next group of people and for the next generation that will have it and enjoy it and be able to see things that they didn't even know existed. So it's a worthwhile cause. We have some great questions. What are the challenges of living and working basically out in the middle of nowhere, out in the ocean, 32, 34 miles, depending on how you cut it? Well, let's put it this way. When you forget something, you just jump back in the car and you go to the grocery store, or you go to Home Depot or Lowe's? We don't do that. What we do is, if you're familiar with the show that was on TV years ago, and I think it's back on, it's called MacGyver, you figure out how to fix things, do things with what you have. So the facility, well, I should back up just a little bit. So let's step back into 2010 in August when I convinced a young captain to carry myself out along with a few others with a big old extension ladder so I could hang it off the side and try and climb up this thing. And when I walked up to it and I opened the door, the thing that I walked into that I had no idea that I would actually see is I walked into history. And it was just like I had stepped into it. And see all that gray. I stepped into 1960. It didn't smell musty or or dirty or mildewy, nothing like that. It had a unique character and odor. And when I walked from room to room, I pulled out drawers and there were Levi jeans, probably from the late 70s. And I think we actually wore them until they fell apart. But there were open briefcases with magazines in them. There were empty Coors cans sitting there that had probably been there for 20 years. I really felt like I was walking into someone's old house or building. And when I walked into the tool room and pulled open the tool drawers, and there were tools in there, and they had coated them with oil, so they weren't all rusted up, and we still use those, which is amazing. So, I knew that I had walked into a very special and unique place, and then I slightly got overwhelmed because I said, "Oh my gosh, there's no way I can't do all this. I can't fix all this." But then quickly I realized that there's enough people out there that once they see this, um, they're going to want to help. They're going to want to be part of it. And it's been that way ever since. We've had hundreds of people come out and volunteer, probably about the same as guests. And people come back with the same understanding is that, when you were home and you were just driving around, you saw a part of life. And this is a viewpoint on life that you can take with you for years to come. So we do volunteers. We will be organizing them throughout the spring. And I know it sounds crazy, but our volunteers actually pay a little bit to help cover the cost of getting out there by helicopter. But what we give them back is a chance to literally change their future. So sounds like marketing material, but it's true. You just have to go there and see it. Another question? I'm sure there's a couple. Yes. We go out there and we literally have a stack of about 20 brand new flags, all made in America, sitting in our inner crew room. And I just posted on Facebook earlier today the father, son, and their friend that stuck the brand new flag up there. It was about almost 2 weeks before. Like I say, it's before we knew that Florence was going to be a hurricane, and it's before we knew the path. But we would place it regularly, and being as we're going to burn through those, well, that's not the right word. Being as we're going to use up those flags, the folks at flagandbanner.com have stepped up and they said, we're going to give you a new flag every single month. It's going to be the very best one that we even know of. It's going to be the most durable one. And we're going to do the same thing we have in the past, which is we'll fly it until it starts to get a little tattered. We'll pull it down as soon as we can get our hands on it and respectfully retire it. We retire our flags to Boy Scout groups, other organizations that do them the right honor. No, another question. Yeah, the question is there a way that we would know how big the waves were as Florence started to come in? Could we see it? Could we tell? Well, as you probably would guess, with our internet connection, we have the two public cameras, and we have a third public camera coming online here shortly as soon as we can get it back out there. But we also have security cameras, and one of our security cameras is what we call our belly cam. Our belly cam looks straight down underneath the middle. It's about 60 feet above the water, and it looks down at the cross pipes that are 12 feet above the water. So on a normal day, they're 12 feet above the water. The other day, they were 3 feet underneath the water, and it was not a public feed, but we tried to snap a picture of it every once in a while and post it up where people could see it. So we're very aware of the wind and the waves, and we actually get notifications if there's movement in the tower, such as someone walking through it. Now, maybe other than a couple ghosts, we've never had anyone break into the tower, which is another question. But being as we are out in international waters, we actually have to be careful of this little thing called pirates. So we lock the gate, and we have the world's largest. Yeah, pirates. The question is, do we have an idea or know what happens to the fish during a hurricane? No, they don't go south, but they go down deep. So if you go back and do a search on YouTube for Frying Pan Tower, you're going to find that I think it's Matthew or Arthur. We dropped a GoPro off the side on a long, rather durable cord, and from the 12-foot waves at that time on the surface all the way down to the seafloor, you could see that it's frothy and filled with air, and it looks just almost like a sherbet. And once you get really, really close to the seafloor, you'll see all the fish kind of down there looking up and hanging out and very confused because it's not their normal day either. But if you think of it this way, when fish have a lot of air stirred up into the water, it's the opposite but the same as if we are out in a heavy rainstorm. We can still breathe, but we have all that water dripping down our ears and nose and everything else. So it's basically that way in the opposite way for all the fish. And Candace, I keep getting something saying limited bandwidth. Yeah, are we okay? Yeah. I've got the smart person. I've got the smart person telling me to pause for a second. Where do I pause on here, Candace? I'll stop for just a few minutes and then I'll change the bit rate. Stand by, folks. It says stream is started, so I assume we're starting to connect again. Testing, testing. All right, there we go. All right, so we changed the bit rate, so yeah, hopefully my wrinkles will be a little bit more smoothed out and we can continue our conversation. Candace, what other questions are coming in? But if you don't have any off the top, I can tell some folks that they might not know. For instance, if you're on the top of the helipad and it's late evening, and you're looking at the camera cruising around, you'll notice on the southwest side, which might be hard to tell, but it's on the left side of the helipad, there's these strange poles laying down on the helipad, about 6 of them on each side. We stand those things up at about a 45-degree angle and hang hammocks on them. So been told many times that one of the most restful and peaceful sleeps that people have is they'll be out there on the helipad sitting in one of those hammocks, watching the shooting stars and being gently rocked by the breeze. And right now it wouldn't be gently rocked, but it's something that many people come out and choose that over even the beds, although the beds are pretty nice with nice foam mattress tops on them too, so go figure. Another question, Candace? Um, it's the pirate question. Do people in boats ever try and get up in the tower when we're not there? Well, we do have the belly camera watching it, and it will flag us if someone is on the leg coming up. But we have this heavy steel grating that is padlocked shut. So I suppose if you were brave enough, and I'm not giving you hints on how to do this, if you're brave enough to go up close to this massive steel structure, jump off the front of the nose of the boat, climb up the leg, carry a set of bolt cutters, ignore the fact that you're being watched on security cameras that's giving us notifications and we can just go out by the helicopter in 20 minutes, you could try. The padlock on there is one that you actually turn the tumblers on it. So if we go out there and it's not on our unique set of numbers, we know that you've tried. So in all these years, only one time has someone actually tried to get in there and they were not successful. They could have just called me. I would have brought them out. Go figure. The question is what kind of wireless link do we use to connect to the tower, and how far is it, and that sort of fun thing. So as you can probably guess, there's not a operating manual on connectivity over 50 miles to the nearest TV station. So we worked with the good folks that provided the actual cameras themselves, which is View into the Blue, and they were able to work with some engineers to figure out how to set up, and I'm not going to get too technical because it's afternoon, evening some places and put you to sleep, but we do a microwave connection 56 miles from our 80-foot level up to 1,320 feet on shore, because guess what? The earth curves and we have to shoot up high enough to hit the spot on on land. Happens to be 56 miles away. That particular connection then goes and shoots back down to another location 13 miles away, which is where we currently have our issue with connectivity because the internet on shore is out right there. To tell you a funny story about our internet, we have wireless all throughout this big steel box, but we don't always make it terribly public and tell people, hey, guess what, it's there. But we don't have a password. So if you're in the neighborhood, come on by and connect up to our internet, perfectly fine. And what's happened is we've had boaters be nearby that had their phones set up so that it would do telephone calls over wireless. And if you've looked at your phones nowadays, you can do that. Well, it was a nice, quiet, and calm day, and there was a boat at the bottom of the tower and a number of boats around. And we were outside working on something, and one of the guys on the boat, his phone started ringing. Now, everybody kind of looked at each other because there's no cell signal out there at all. So he answered it, and it was his wife, and she said, I forget his name. Actually, I probably shouldn't say his name. She said, hey, I can tell you're close to shore because, you took my call, and, when are you going to be home? And he says, oh, no, honey, I'm out here in the middle of the ocean at the Frying Pan Tower. She says, no, you're not. I know you have to be close to shore. You need to come home right now because we're waiting on dinner. And he said, no, honey, I'm still 3 hours away from shore. I can't get there. And everybody in all the boats around there were laughing. And I think they all turned off their phones at that point. But we do have tremendous internet capability. It's about a gigabyte of connection speed once we get it connected back up to the actual Spectrum folks. And if you know anything about internet, you know that you can download a lot faster than you can upload. So when we're out there and we're uploading, we have a lot less than that to use to send the signal back up. But that's how we get the cameras connected. And the power for them, well, when you walked in your house, you just flipped the switch and the lights came on, as I did. But when you're out there, there's no cable to shore. There's no connection. So we've worked again with the folks over at explore.org to get some solar panels and a lot of big batteries and hooked them up in series and made my head hurt with all the engineering behind it and have it set up so that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we have solar and we have wind power charging up our battery bank and keeping the cameras on, keeping our refrigerator on and our freezer and our security cameras, and providing emergency communications when we need to help the Coast Guard when boaters are out there. So, yeah, the question is there a website that people can go to and find out more about this? Well, like a lot of places, we do a lot of our communication through explore.org. We do it through Facebook if you look up Frying Pan Tower. Or you can go to our website and find out about our fractional ownership or just details about who we are and what we've been doing. And that is fptower.com. And people go, what did you say? Well, think of Frying Pan Tower. And it's just fptower.com. When and if the owners decide to flip reservations back on again, that'd be the first place we'd list it. We'd announce it on Facebook, and we do a lot of posting on Facebook, and I think these kids now are all using Instagram, so we'll probably start using that. Go figure. Well, another question. Why is it named the Frying Pan Tower? It's a great question. I would have chosen something a little bit simpler, although it would not have been Kevin. The Frying Pan Tower is what the mariners and the sailors from back in the 17 and 1800s thought that the actual shoals looked like. Keep in mind, they didn't have any satellite, they didn't have any airplanes, so they couldn't go up in the air to take a look at what the shoals were. They're a long, skinny, handle-looking set of sand dunes that kind of meander out along the Cape Fear River. So when the Cape Fear River carries out dirt and silt, it deposits it along a line that basically looks like a handle. And so they start calling it the Frying Pan Shoals. And we're a tower, so there you go, Frying Pan Tower. There's a restaurant in Southport that asked us, could they use our name? And I said, guys, it's not my name. It belongs to the Shoals, and we're both just going to borrow it. So you're welcome to it. Pretty good restaurant, too. How deep is the water under the tower? And probably the other question is how come the tower just doesn't tip over, right? The tower, as I said, is about 65, 70 feet above the water once you get out of the water. But from the water down, it's 50 feet deep. So our camera that's on the seafloor is actually probably about 45 feet down. And occasionally, like I say, when the water's clear, it'll just look out and you'll see the barracuda or you'll see the sharks. Or if you look down, you'll see the really large array of small fish that are around the bottom of it. And the legs themselves, when they carried this thing out, they used an enormous barge. And they picked it up, set it on the ground, the bottom legs, and then through each of the individual legs, they used a large hydraulic ram to put pipes down into the actual bedrock, several hundred feet. Once they had the pipes way down into the earth, they filled them with cement. So the structure itself, to say that it's solid is an understatement. It really doesn't move much. It creaks a little, but so do I, so I guess that's okay. Any more questions? Good question. Has anyone ever operated a ham radio from the tower? Yes, back in the 60s it was certainly done. When we first got it, the ham radio operators that are around the Wilmington area brought out some equipment, and they put this, as the ham guys would like to say, a unique grid location. And so periodically we'll have a ham operator out there tossing his signal around, and apparently it's pretty good. Along the same lines, when we first got out there, before we engineered the connection to shore, I made a call. I don't know if I should say this. I made a call to one of the satellite providers, and I asked them if they would put a satellite dish out there for us. And once they found out it was out in the middle of the ocean, they said, sure, for $1,500 a month. So I asked them if they would put up a satellite dish at my house in Charlotte. And they said, sure, for $60 a month. Okay. So I ordered that. And when the installer called me up to put it in there, I said, well, can you move it just slightly over a little ways? And so he came out to the tower, hooked it up, and we use it for emergency backup communications. But as soon as he turned it on, he said, you guys have an amazing, oh, wait, you're the only guys on your signal out here. There's no one else on this grid. So as our emergency backup, we use marine band radios. We have a satellite provider that we can communicate through, or we use the beautiful dish network that's been set up through the explore.org folks. And I don't mean Dish, the company. I mean a large 4-foot diameter dish that we pointed at shore. So. The question is what made me want to buy the tower? All right. This one's a little embarrassing because it took me a couple years to actually realize why it even appealed to me. So imagine this. It's 2008, 2009, and you're a computer guy, and you're sitting at your desk all day, and you're working on stuff, and you're clicking on stuff, and it's the end of the day. It's 6 o'clock, and you've answered another RFP, and you've figured out another programming thing, and well, let's just see what's on the internet that you could actually hit that you could buy from the government, because, right, it's a recession, and you buy things from the government, and it's like that $5 Jeep from my childhood a long time ago. So I did a little bit of research, and I found what they call Government Services Administration website. And when I said, what do you have as far as land or properties available? It came up and it said, well, here's an old bank building. And it was a really beautiful building, but in the middle of nowhere. And then here's a warehouse, and here's some FEMA type of trailers, and here's a large metal box on stilts in the middle of the ocean. And I kind of went, wait a minute, go back. What was that again? And after a series of auctions where it got auctioned and then didn't actually get purchased, and then they put up a sealed bid auction, and I ended up getting it. I had it for a year or so when I was talking to a gentleman, and he said, why'd you buy it? And it came to me. I bought my childhood treehouse. When I was a boy in Oklahoma, in our suburb, we didn't have any trees to speak of in the backyard, but my mom and dad went out and cut 4 large poles, put them in the backyard, and built a box on top of it. I bought my treehouse, and now I get to share it with everyone. So that was actually what happened and why it came about, even though I didn't realize it at the time. Ganna says that I'm sure there's going to be more questions. If you would, you can just post them on explore.org, or you can go to the Facebook page, which is Frying Pan Tower. Easy to find us. Let us know what you think there. And the last thing that I really want everyone to kind of understand is that this is not something that I jumped in and said, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do. This is something that I, along with several other good people, men and women, have said, all right, this is a piece of history, and how do we make it available? And the viewpoint from this unique location is something that people most likely will never see. I mean, how often do you look at, 50 feet underneath the water, 35 miles out in the ocean, and get to see what's cruising by? So it's our goal to work with the good folks at explore.org to make sure that we provide this for many years after I'm no longer able to help on it. And it's going to take people just like you. So this is not an ask for donations. This is an ask to share this message, to visit the explore.org websites, look at all their cams, find out all the amazing things that are in this world, and stay tuned. I'm sure there's more exciting stuff to come. And that's about it.